Is Marvel's Midnight Suns worth your time in 2024? Now that all the DLC has been released and the game is likely in its final form, this video is here to give you a spoiler-free, comprehensive breakdown of the good, the bad, and the things that I can definitely see turning some people off right away. I'll also go into detail about the different editions of the game and which one might be right for you because there's way more options than there really should be. Now let's get started with the star of the show, the combat system. Coming from the same developers as the XCom franchise, which are phenomenal games if you haven't played them, the turn-based system in Midnight Suns is very easy to learn but difficult to master. The basic idea is that 3 cards can be played each round with your most powerful abilities requiring heroism that gets built up by playing some of the lower level skills and attacks. 3 cards might not sound like a lot, but the beauty of this system is that most heroes have quick abilities that will refund your card play anytime you knock out an enemy with them. There are also certain types of enemies that will refund a card play anytime you knock them out regardless of the ability used, and there's combat items and bonuses heroes can get that will make it so extra cards can be played. This system is really not as limiting as it might look on the surface. With that being said, if you're coming into this expecting a deep deck builder type of experience, Midnight Suns is not that. You can unlock and upgrade new cards and abilities, but outside of the main character, the ability pool for each hero is really not deep enough for you to spend a ton of time working on your deck. I actually believe that this is a good thing, as there's enough variety to fine-tune a playstyle and find some good synergies, but not so much that you'll fall down a rabbit hole trying to get the perfect deck or some super rare card. As I'll talk about more in the video, Midnight Suns is actually a surprisingly deep game, and there's a lot of other mechanics that are at play, so I like the simplicity of this one. This brings me to the second half of the combat system, which honestly might be my favorite part. The way that Midnight Suns uses the environment is absolutely fantastic. You can use heroism points to do things like knock enemies into electrical boxes and stun them, vault over items for a high damage hit, or just pick up a pile of newspapers and smack them with it. Knocking back enemies into your teammates will also do a combo hit for more damage, and in certain places you can even throw enemies off of the map. Every encounter has environmental objects and hazards scattered around, and this adds an entirely new tactical layer to the action economy. Figuring out how to maximize between the cards you have available and the heroism you can use on the environment is a wonderful chess game that helps to keep every single fight fresh.
I can do this all day.
To top it all off, there's actually a pretty wide variety of enemies as you get deeper into the game, and sometimes supervillains will drop into the fight and completely change everything. A fight that might have seemed like it was going to be an easy win can quickly go sideways and become a lot tougher than you originally thought. Again, if you've played XCOM, you absolutely know this feeling. The only real complaint that I have with combat is the camera, as the default view just feels way too zoomed in and cuts off too much of the fight. I find myself playing in tactical view, normally zoomed out, and having to pan around a lot to see everything or get good angles. This is a minor inconvenience, and sometimes it's downright annoying, but honestly, if you've played other games in this genre, you've probably dealt with similar issues before. Now obviously I can't talk about the combat without discussing the difficulty of the game as well. If this is something you're worried about or you're not a hardcore tactical player, you'll be fine. The difficulty curve is actually done very well in Midnight Suns, and there's a surprising amount of levels to it. As you complete missions, you'll get star ratings based on your performance, and if you continue to get high ratings, the game will unlock the next difficulty level for you to try, only if you want. Each level offers slight bumps to things like enemy strength or reinforcements for additional XP and mission rewards. The curve actually felt pretty in line with the progress of the game as I unlocked more heroes' abilities and just overall got more powerful. Plus, if the next level feels too hard or you just want to enjoy the story with light combat, you can drop it right back down. Speaking of, let's talk about the story in the world of Midnight Suns. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this game is long. Some of that is because the mechanics with the characters, which I'll talk about next, but the story itself is very deep, and the first 3-ish hours of the game are spent building the foundation and backstory with a lot of cutscenes. Like a lot of low resolution looking cutscenes with a lot of dialogue. The game doesn't do a great job of explaining that this is just the tutorial getting acquainted type of section, and it made me wonder if the entire thing was going to be this cutscene heavy, and I can see a lot of people thinking the same thing. The story draws from different parts of the Marvel universe, but the main character hero you play is actually one that was created specifically for this Midnight Suns game. The first few hours basically lay the foundation in the background, and if you're a Marvel fan, you'll likely notice a lot of references and little things, but you don't have to be one to understand what's going on. I will say the world building itself is actually really good, and after you get past those first few hours and finally have the freedom to do what you want, the game opens up. The main loop is basically doing a mission during the day, and special events are hanging out with the team at night. The hub area, called the Abbey, can be explored during the day or the night and has its own stories, secrets, and powers to unlock completely separate from the combat missions. So it was really surprising at how large the map itself was and how many different areas I ended up finding. Now sure, some of this might feel a little bit dated mechanic wise, and the camera wasn't the greatest here either, but I ended up enjoying it for the most part. Now in case you're wondering, you can minimize how much you do this, but it's really not an optional thing. The main story will progress through both the combat missions and the events and things that happen around the base. Exploration is rewarded with chests that are found around the Abbey containing things like resources or color color palettes for cosmetics, and there are also collectibles and crafting ingredients that you can find. Crafting is also not a requirement, but it is one of the only ways to get healing items and some other pretty powerful combat things. Outside of that main hub area, the world is the Marvel Universe. There are some iconic locations and plenty of different backdrops for the combat, so you're not always just fighting in a similar looking area over and over again. This story is based heavily in the occult, but combined with the normal Hydra shenanigans and a dash of some other villains that I was actually surprised to see. Obviously, Marvel has a lot of source material to draw from, but considering how many heroes and different backgrounds there are coming together here, the story actually never felt too disjointed or crazy, and each hero has a part with their own small narrative that contributes to the total package. I'm gonna say it again, narrative is a big focus here. One pretty cool thing I noticed was that as world events are going on, the heroes you pass by will be having conversations amongst themselves that don't stop or revolve around the main character. A good example of this is Captain America talking to Nick Fury as I walked by, in a conversation that was completely background noise, but still contributed to the story and made everything feel a little bit more alive. These moments happen a lot, and just the sheer amount of banter between all of the heroes is genuinely mind-blowing. There's even an in-game social network of sorts that updates almost daily with some pretty funny posts, although after the first few days I just kind of stopped paying attention to it. If you enjoy the Marvel style of humor, you'll definitely find some entertainment here. However, the character building and interactions are a little bit of a double-edged sword, and one of the biggest things that I have seen put people off of this game. The characters themselves are fine, with a lot of recognizable Marvel heroes if you're not a super fan. There are 13 total in the base game, with 4 extra heroes added through DLC, which I'll discuss next. Each of these heroes has 5 friendship levels with the main character and an overall team friendship level that will build up as you increase friendship with all of the other heroes. Remember when I said you'd be hanging out? That's where all of this comes into play. Most nights you'll have the option to pick a hero and join what is called a hangout to build the bonds of friendship. These hangouts generally consist of a short cutscene and conversation that goes into the thoughts or background story of the heroes. There are also club meetings and events throughout the game where you will be with multiple heroes, and the conversations aren't quite as short. On top of that, scripted events before and after some missions will have you decide how to handle conflicts within the team or with certain personalities. Each character will react differently to your answers, and some of the issues you have to solve really are as simple as X hero is not feeling confident today, give them a pep talk and check in on them. Basically, the social aspect and relationship building part of this game is just as big, if not bigger, than the combat. There is a lot of drama, and inevitably there will be some characters that you probably don't like dealing with. Technically, the hangouts are not a requirement, as you can just finish the missions and then go to bed to start the next day. However, the mechanics of the game make it in your best interest to build friendships up by giving powerful passive abilities to heroes with higher friendship levels, as well as powerful hero combo attacks for the overall team friendship level.
Let's make this quick.
This is a great setup for character building and lore, but it absolutely slows the game down if you want to talk to and go through this with everyone. Or if you aren't interested in this type of thing at all, going through it for the benefits or because you're required to can definitely feel like a drag. Again, this is a long game. 50 hours easily, 100 hours possible. If you don't enjoy this kind of dynamic or don't care about the story and only want to play for the combat, Midnight Suns probably is not for you. The bright side is that Midnight Suns actually has a new game plus mode that carries over all of the heroes and your friendship levels, so you don't have to try to max everything in one run and then lose your progress if you start over. But even if you do hit the max levels, there are actually prestige and champion levels for the characters and the friendships, so you are really always progressing and getting more even if you are at the so-called max. These are great features for replayability and one that you normally don't see in these XCOM style games. So let's talk about the different editions and what they offer you. The naming can be a little confusing, but Midnight Suns is available on PS4 and Xbox One, as well as the new generation consoles and PC. The Enhanced Edition is literally just the PS5 and Xbox Series version that costs $10 more than the standard edition for PS4 and Xbox One. Then we have the Digital Plus Edition, which comes in at $80 and is available for all platforms, plus includes 6 more skins than the Enhanced Edition. I really hate when games do this type of thing. Lastly, we have the $100 Legendary Edition, which comes with even more skins, plus all of the Season Pass content. That's right, there's a Season Pass available too. The Season Pass includes all of the DLCs and is a a whopping $50. There's an in-game currency as well, Eclipse credits, but seriously, never buy them. Absolutely unnecessary. As far as DLC goes, there are 4 separate packs, and individually they are $15 a piece. The 4 heroes only available through DLC are Storm, Venom, Deadpool, and Morbius, and all of these heroes come with 2 of their own side story missions to do as well. What a mouthful of a pricing model that was. Now, I cannot in good conscience recommend anyone to ever buy a $100 game. However, if you wait for a sale, the Legendary Edition is definitely the way to go in my opinion, especially if you are a fan of those heroes. I got it for around $25, and the extra plot lines, items, and upgrades that are added, in my opinion, are worth it. If you don't really care about the extra story or those heroes, you won't miss out on anything critically important, and I think the base edition of the game is definitely worth it on its own. Cosmetics really shouldn't be a factor in your decision, as no matter which edition you buy, the best looking skins in the game can be unlocked for every hero through their individual legendary challenge missions. To see those skins and legendary abilities, watch the video on screen now that shows you how to unlock every single one.